Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. SANIBONANI, MOLWENI, unjani. How are you? Are you okay? Are you doing wonderfully? Because I just had the most amazing conversation with Boitumelo Lewele from Murray Stopes, and I am over the moon excited. We speak about abortion and contraceptives firstly, and then abortion. Thank you so much, Boitumelo, for your time. I'm out of my mind excited. Oh my word. It was amazing. Boitumelo is full of life. I loved it and she made me so excited. Anyway, if you have any questions or comments, you know what to do. And thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the video. My name is Keisha Lee, and I'm your host for Take It All. I opened this to the listeners long ago to send me questions about abortion and things like that. So I have divided them into two types of before TOP, like questions they may want before having one, and then questions that they may have after, what happens after having a termination of pregnancy procedure. So obviously, the most important one is abortion safe.
You know, abortion is safe, but it goes back to what we discussed earlier. It's safe when it's offered in a safe environment by trained professionals who can hold your hand throughout the process, pre-procedure, during the procedure, and post-abortion care. So I would say, yes, it is safe. However, the circumstances around it, that means the person that is assisting to have the abortion, the facility that you access to have the abortion, it needs to be safe, it needs to be legalized.
I'm going to put these two questions together and offer them. Why does give your personal information when going to a clinic? And also, is the service confidential?
What I like is that when you are in the medical profession, automatically the ethics of confidentiality, is there and stands out throughout, to a point even now in this, I cannot even discuss, for example, you were discussing your family member, you did not even disclose the person, who or she is, or the place that they were working at, because you understand the ethical binding of confidentiality. At Murray Stopes, we pride ourselves in terms of ensuring safeguarding of personal information and, client records and all of that. And that is why that we have systems, in place in our facilities that allow for safeguarding and confidentiality of client information. And the reason why we ask for personal details, it's to obviously for our record keeping. And remember, when we have that record keeping, to say, okay, Boitumelo, she had, in 2020, she started her contraceptive. It gives us a clear picture of your journey. And we need that personal information because it's usually what we use to link your profile as an individual and the services that you've accessed at our facilities. We are able to link it to you so that we can ensure continued quality of care. So that is basically, it's not because we want to go and visit you and go in your street and shout and be like, oh, we know you. No, we have laws that govern our confidentiality coming from a personal perspective, which is your name, your ID number, There are laws and protocols that govern that as well as your client record, But we just need the information to be able to link your journey and your profile with us, to say that this one is totally just for Boitumelo, this is for the next person. Yeah.
Thank you. So earlier on you spoke about the before 12 weeks prior and then between 13 and 20 weeks. So how long or how soon can you have an abortion from finding out you're pregnant?
So as you find you're pregnant, you've done a pregnancy test, the new law says that we can now provide termination of pregnancy until 20 weeks, 6 days. Previously, it was only until 20 weeks, but now they have passed an amendment to say that it's inclusive of the days. So, although I must add, for example, there is something called early termination of pregnancy, where a woman has done a pregnancy test, but when we do our physical examinations, and particularly our ultrasound scan, we cannot identify the gestational sac where potentially the pregnancy would grow into. And with that, we always just advise them that, if there is a possibility that, especially if they're doing the medical process, that the method might fail. So as soon as a woman falls pregnant, we have confirmed the pregnancy, and there's nothing medically that contradicts them to having a safe abortion care. They can have the termination of pregnancy until 20 weeks, 6 days now.
All right. And what are the risks with this medical procedure?
Okay, so with the medical procedure, remember there's a medical procedure, the medical where you do the tablets, and then there's the surgical procedure. So, and the risks that we explain to the clients are the same, whether you're doing the tablet, whether you are doing the surgical. The first risk that we always discuss with clients is the risk of infection, right? With medical, it's usually if someone had already had a pre-existing infection, that maybe when they were being assessed, maybe it was not picked up, and then they could start seeing that once they go through the process, they can start developing signs of infection. With that, we always encourage the clients to come back to us, we assess them, and then we're able to assist them with antibiotics appropriately. And then there's also a risk of, continuing pregnancy. So, for example, there is a rare percentage, approximately 1% or less, where women, they take the tablets, and then they do, they take the tablets as explained and everything, and then unfortunately the tablets fail, and then those type of clients, usually we have to book them for the surgical procedure. It can happen that. There's also obviously because medically you're doing the process at home, you're taking the tablet. It could be that you might lose a lot of blood because the medical procedure mimics almost like a miscarriage, so or a heavy period. So if it is that maybe you are someone that is anemic, you have a low HB, which is actually a low HB, or being anemic during pregnancy, it's common because your body becomes under distress because now you are, your blood supply is for 2 people or more than 2. So in that case, if you lose a lot of blood, you might obviously go into an anemic state, but it differs from person to person. You can just take supplements, which usually boost the HB up. So let's say, for example, you are someone that came to our facility, you have a low HB. We do not assist you immediately. We first give you treatment to try and lift up the HB, and usually after 6 days, it has improved, and then we can proceed with the termination of pregnancy. So the risks are usually just possible medical complications, not necessarily like adverse risks.
Right. Is it then even possible to ask which treatment is best? Because obviously I'm assuming that medical is between 1 and 12 weeks, right? With the tablets, and then surgical would be from 13 to 20 weeks and 6 days. Is that appropriate to assume that?
It's appropriate to assume, yes. But might I just add that you can actually do a medical process, until 20 weeks. But obviously you need the infrastructure. You need to make sure those types of women, you cannot just discharge.
Yeah.
They're going through the procedure, at home. You need to basically plan. So the model that we have currently at Murray Stokes, and that I've seen at most government facilities, although I will not be able to confirm, but for our model, what we do between, if you're less than 9 weeks pregnant, we give you the medical tablet, right? Because the chances of the method, being successful in insemination is high. And then from 9 weeks, 1 day, to 12 weeks, we do the surgical procedure, and that surgical procedure can be performed by a professional But then from 12 weeks, 1 day until 20 weeks, 6 by the doctor, and it's also a surgical. So it's safe to say that from whatever, let's say you just found out you're pregnant until 9 weeks, you would more likely go for the medical pill. And then from 9 weeks, 1 day until 20 weeks, 6 days, you would be considered for a surgical procedure. However, having said, if you are a woman 6 weeks pregnant and you don't wish to do the pill from 6 weeks, we can assist you with the surgical. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So these questions relate to after TOPs, right?
Okay.
Feel after the abortion, and is it painful during the procedure and after?
Every time I consult a client, that I will not lie to them and say that there's not going to be a degree of pain or sensation that you felt, right? But what is important to note is that you are, as Maristops, we do give pain management. But if you're doing the medical, we do give you painkillers that you will take, and we advise you in terms of how to take them to ensure that they minimize the pain. If you're doing a surgical procedure, we have two options. We have an option where we do provide you with an injection before the procedure and something that we call vocal local, which is a non-surgical intervention that actually helps to distract the client so that they don't focus on the pain. And after that, obviously, we do give them discharge pain medication. But also for surgical, we also have the option of doing it under conscious sedation, which is very different from the normal sedation, which is when you go for an operation. Mm-hmm. It's just to relieve the anxiety, so there is a degree of pain, but we do have the management to try and alleviate that pain. And having said that, it differs from person to person because we all have different pain thresholds. Yeah. And we need, so also what I want to add is that it's very important that we educate women as to why they feel the pain. Because the reason why you're feeling the pain is because of doing the medical process, for example, your uterus contracting, your womb is contracting, and those contractions are necessary to expel the pregnancy tissues. And it's also necessary, even after the procedure has been successful, you might still have light cramping because it's necessary. Remember, when you are pregnant, the uterus expands to accommodate the pregnancy. Once everything, then it starts contracting, it expels the pregnancy tissues, and then it still needs to contract to go back to its original small position when someone is not pregnant. So it's also important, I think, the more we educate women on the degree of pain that they are going to experience, why they're going to experience it, and what we are going to do to try and decrease that pain, I think the more women will be more assured or reassured and comfortable and not too worried about the pain.
All right, thank you very much. So these two questions are, will there be a lot of bleeding, and is it better to use a sanitary towel or a tampon?
Okay, so we always advise women not to use tampons until their next normal period, once they've had the safe abortion. The medical termination of pregnancy, we expect that bleeding should last, for about 10 to 14 days. Mm-hmm. So we expect it to last at least 10 to 14 days, or sometimes even 16. And thereafter, they might just have light spotting, like drops. Like I said, the medical process where you take the tablet, it mimics almost like a heavy period, or it mimics almost like a miscarriage. And then with the surgical, we also expect that you might have like a lighter period, because remember, the surgical, you've had the procedure, the pregnancy is completely expelled. It's just a matter now of your body just releasing blood. You had procedure, and then that blood doesn't usually last for more than 2 weeks. So it varies. And also how far in your pregnancy you were impacted. So for example, someone that did the medical process at 8 weeks will not have the same bleeding as someone that did the medical process at 6 weeks because of the gestation of the pregnancy.
Right. Thank you. So you mentioned earlier on that there is a aftercare, right? So what happens after the abortion? Like after the procedure is finished at the facility, what happens afterwards?
Okay. So I assume you're asking about the surgical, or are you asking about medical and surgical?
Yeah, medical and surgical.
Okay. So remember with the medical termination of pregnancy, it is you take the first tablet with us in the facility, then the second dose you take at home, and then you have the process at home. As per Mary Stokes, after 2 weeks, we encourage women to come back for a checkup for us to ensure that the procedure was successful. If, let's say, for example, they chose the option of an IUD or the loop, as people call it, that's when we would insert it after 14 days, provided that there's nothing, that the procedure was successful. But then if it is maybe that they an injection or tablets, we actually give them on the day to commence within 7 days. And then with the surgical procedure, it's quite different because remember, you've had a procedure now. So once the procedure has been successful, we take you to recovery room. We monitor you for a minimum of 1 to 2 hours to make sure that your pain is at a minimal, maybe just having light cramping, make sure that your vitals are stable. And then obviously you also do have the opportunity to also come back after 2 weeks for a checkup.
All right. You kind of already answered one of my questions, or how soon after abortion can I start my birth control? You said between 1 and 7 days?
So yes, within 7 days. So for example, if you're doing the medical process, remember the medical process, you take one tablet. Let's say you take 1 tablet today, the first tablet today, so the one that you drink with water. Then after between 24 to 48 hours, you take the second dose of tablets, which is 4 tablets underneath your tongue, and you allow them to dissolve. So we usually, if let's say a client has chosen to take maybe oral contraceptive, we usually advise them to say, okay, you can take your tablet on the 3rd day of your process, once you have taken all the termination of pregnancy or the abortion medication, so that it does not, because sometimes women, like when they're using the tablets, they can get nauseated. So imagine now if you take another tablet, and then it can impact that. But for an injection, let's say, for example, the injection, when you take your first tablet in the facility with us, and then when we discharge you to go home, we've already given you the injection. The only method that we cannot give immediately or within the 7 days is the intrauterine contraceptive device, because we need to first wait for the pregnancy tissues to get expelled, for the pregnancy to be successful, and then we can insert, which is usually at your 2 weeks checkup.
All right. After your surgical abortion, will someone need time off, and also how soon can people have sex after an abortion, be it medical?
Okay. So we usually advise clients to obviously the first 7 days to not participate in any sexual intercourse. And it's also very important for women to note that even though we say 7 days don't have sex, they need to obviously check, are they comfortable, have they healed, has the bleeding stopped, So, and also when it comes to contraceptive, if you started your contraceptive on the 3rd day, let's making an example with the tablet, you need to have taken the tablet consistently and correctly for at least 7 days for you to be fully protected from the risk of falling pregnant. So you see that even though you would have waited that 7 days that we say don't have sex within the first week, but because you have not taken the tablet for 7 days and therefore not being protected from from falling pregnant again, there's a risk. So even though we say 7 days is the bare minimum, but we always encourage clients in terms of their contraceptive and also giving their body time to heal, especially their uterus to contract back to its original position. But obviously, we do not take away the fact that women have autonomy, and they also have sexual needs that they also need to satisfy. So the bare minimum that we always advocate for is 7 days. And your other question, what was your other question?
Will I need time off after a medical or surgical abortion?
Mm-hmm. So with the surgical abortion, the recovery is quite, it's quite quick. And then, but it also depends, this question is actually very broad because it depends on you. If, for example, you have a very low pain threshold, you might time off, but usually women that have done the surgical, once they are discharged from the recovery room and they're discharged home, they're usually fine. Like there's no problems. And then the medical ones, because the process happens over 2 days, they might maybe need that day when they take the tablets underneath their tongue, that's going to induce the process. Maybe they want to be in the comfort of their home, and maybe they might take time just for that day when we expect the excessive bleeding and all of that, just for comfortability.
Is there evidence that an abortion will affect one's menstrual cycle going forward?
No, I've not been exposed to such literature that says it impacts on the menstrual cycle of a woman, because but the only thing that can impact your menstrual cycle is hormones, because your menstrual cycle is regulated by a pool of hormones. And if we're talking, the only thing that could possibly impact your menstrual cycle, it could be anything that you take that is hormonal that would impact. But to say the termination of pregnancy, no, it does not impact on your hormones. And if there is literature, I'm yet to be exposed to it.
All right. So the last 2 questions in After TOP is, will an abortion affect my health? And will I be able to have children after or later?
So I think this question goes back to the issue of ensuring that you have access to quality care and safe abortion services, because if an abortion is done right, it should not impact on your fertility in the future. It should not impact on your well-being. Okay, like I said, there are circumstances where complications do arise. Let's say, for example, a client develops an infection. That is an impact on your well-being, but that is an impact that we can give you antibiotics and we can assist you in that regard. But if you are going to go to to access an unsafe, illegal termination of pregnancy service, it can impact on your well-being as well as your probability to fall pregnant in the future. Because, like I said to you earlier in the conversation, sometimes women even lose their wombs because they become so septic, so severe, and they become septic to a point that unfortunately they have to remove the womb. But when it's done safe, if the complication or the adverse event does occur, we are able to assist you to preserve your life, your well-being, and your probability to fall pregnant in the future.
All right. So I think this would be the last question. How do we get the message across that that abortion is a safe medical and normal procedure, that it happens quite often, more than we know of, not only in facilities like yours, but also in government facilities? How do we educate women, make them aware that the service is readily available, that they should go to a designated place, healthcare facility, that we should try and lessen the impact of stigma against women? Because obviously the act is literally called the Choice Act, and for them to have their choice and not just because they're pregnant. And how do we let women know that a pregnancy is not the end of your life? It is not to ruin your life thereof, and that there is a service available to do all of these things. How do we get that message across to women in South Africa?
I think for me, what stands out in achieving that, I think we need a collaborative effort. We need a collaborative effort to address that, through campaigns, through wellness, programs, through platforms like this that you've provided, today. Amongst ourselves as women, let us share our experiences, because you never know, maybe your experience could, empower someone else to even open up and say, you know what, I need help. You get what I'm saying? But I think it's through education. We can share education and learnings through campaigns, TV ads, also going to our curriculum. going into our curriculum. When we talk about life orientation, when I was in school, life orientation didn't touch on safe abortion care.
Yeah.
I only about abortion when I was in high school. Can you believe that?
Wow.
So those are the spaces that I think us as advocates and people that are knowledgeable or are willing to learn and expose themselves and, be a voice for the voiceless women. It's up to us to have these interactions, collaborate between private sector and the government, run campaigns, educate our women and our boys from a young age through curriculum, amendments and development. I think those are just those are just a few of my ideas, but I think collaboratively, if we have the impact, because like people always say, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
So let's the knowledge of our children, of our women, of our men, of society at large, and then perhaps if they have access to this information, it will, renew their mindset and then maybe possibly impact on reducing stigma.
Yeah, that is very true. And I feel like obviously what we are taught, we inherently get from our parents in the terms of stigma. And that gets passed down from us to our children and things like that. So if we were to be the generation that informs ourselves to then inform our children and their children, we could then, because my parents did this and it was a taboo to speak about abortion or things like that, or pregnancy or sex even.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for what you're doing for women in South Africa. I think this is a very great platform and we need to encourage platforms like this. And like I said, collaboratively and as a collective, if we come together and, we become the voice of the voiceless and we tap into these topics that are sensitive, that are touchy, I think we can begin to see, a change in society, because our mandate should be, we need to empower women, their right of autonomy, and to be aware of their rights and to act within those rights. So thank you so much.